Thank you. To build on what we're just talking about, do we have the legal authority to assist the Free Syrian Army that we train against Assad? Is there a doubt about that?
I am not sure about the legalities of it, Senator. To be quite honest, I'm not.
Let's just put it this way. If there's any doubt about whether or not we have the legal authority to protect the troops we train against Assad, please let the committee know. You don't have to answer right now, but that's a big decision. If there's a lack of legal authority, I want to know why and what can we do to fix it.
Appreciate it, and I'll take that back. I appreciate that thought.
Yeah, General Dempsey, thank you for decades of service. I really appreciate that. General Dempsey, would you agree that there are more terrorist organizations with more safe havens, with more weapons, with more capability, with more men to strike the homeland than any time since 9/11?
Thank you for your service. I know you retired recently. Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that ISIL is expanding in other countries as we speak?
Yes.
Okay. When it comes to Iraq, do you both agree that partitioning Iraq into 3 separate countries is probably not a viable strategy?
I certainly agree with that, yes.
Do you agree that the Sunni world would object to giving the southern part of Iraq to Iran? That's what would happen, right, if we partition the South? Do you all agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds like sectarianism to me, and we know what lies down that road.
And independent Kurdistan is going to create a lot of upheaval with Turkey and the region at large. Do you agree with that? A separate independent state.
For the Turks, a separate independent state would be very problematic. And within Iraq, I think a substantial autonomy within a decentralized but integral Iraq is still possible. That's what Abadi's trying to do.
I agree. Do you agree with that, General?
I do, sir.
Yeah, so partitioning, I think, is not a viable strategy. As to the Kurds, do any of you believe, either one of you believe that the Kurds have the ability, will, to go in to liberate Ramadi?
I'll start that. I think they may have the ability, and we are obviously trying to facilitate their movement south. Whether they have the will is another matter. The only reason that I say that is that they're getting at that point to the edge of the territory that is Kurdish.
Well, that's my point, is for anybody to suggest that the Kurds are the answer to all of our problems, they don't, quite frankly, know the Mideast. I mean, the Kurds are not going to liberate Syria. Do you all agree with that? They'll be part of the component, but they're not going to be the liberating force.
Right, part of the component, absolutely.
As to Assad, what's more likely? President Obama leaves office in 2017 or Assad goes first?
It's certain that President Obama will leave.
Yeah, no, I know
office.
that.
And then, so that's an easy question, but then it ends up turning on whether Assad will be in power then.
Yeah. Who leaves first, Obama or Assad?
Well, I certainly hope it's Assad.
Yeah, I do, but I don't think so. So the bottom line, if Assad stays in power, do you worry about Jordan and Lebanon being a victim of the war in Syria if it continues the way it's going? That Jordan and Lebanon will become a casualty of the war in Syria?
Well, I think Jordan and Lebanon are already suffering from the effects of war in Syria. They're hosting
we
refugees.
Could have failed, right. It could even get worse.
That's exactly the concern we should all have about, one of the concerns we should have about what's going on in Syria. It's not just the Syrian people, it's the neighbors as well.
Do you agree with me that no Arab force is going to go in and fight ISIL alone unless you put Assad on the table?
I see what you're getting at, and it gets back to our train and equip program. And we are finding people who whose principal security fear for their own people, and this is really for their own villages, is ISIL.
Well,
and so they're willing to go and fight against ISIL. There are others who want to fight against Assad,
sure,
and that's it's another matter.
Here's my point. they're recruiting more foreign fighters than we're training Free Syrian Army. The math doesn't work. This is never going to result in Assad or ISIL being degraded or destroyed. The only way I see ISIL to be degraded or destroyed is for a ground force, regional in nature, to go into Syria. Do you agree with me that no ground force made up of Turks, Saudis, Egyptians, you name it, are going into Syria to fight ISIL unless one of the goals is to replace Assad? They're not going to give half of Syria to Iran.
That sounds sensible to me, and I certainly wish that such a force would be created. I mean, one of the great disappointments in all of this is that the Sunni world more broadly isn't more involved in this fight.
Okay, let's dig into that for a moment. If we went to Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia tomorrow and said, we would like to use your armies, we'll be integrated, would you agree with me for them to say yes, that we would have to make Assad a target of that army? And are we willing to do that?
Let's see. I would guess that it's very hypothetical, because sadly none of them has indicated willingness to do anything of that kind under any circumstances.
Here's what they've told me.
I see what you're driving at, which is will the rest of the Sunni Middle East participate in this conflict more? I certainly wish they would. The one answer I know, Senator, is for the Turks. The Turks have stated their position, which is that they definitely want Assad to go, and the conditions for any other participation so far has been that they want to fight against Assad.
Well, I would suggest you do the following, and you travel a lot. We went to Qatar, went to Saudi Arabia, we went all over the Mideast, and they told us to a person, we would gladly join forces with you upon the condition that Assad is part of the target set. And nobody in the United States will tell them whether or not we're willing to take Assad on militarily as part of the ground force. So I would suggest, instead of being upset with the Sunni Arab world, that our problems lie within ourselves, that we're not putting Assad on the table militarily. Do you agree with that? Do you think Assad is on the table militarily?
Senator, as I'm sure you know, his position on the battlefield is more tenuous today than it has been for a long time.
And I don't mean it is, but the point is our efforts designed to take Assad out militarily, or are we focusing just on ISIL?
No, our approach has been, as I think has been stated clearly for some time, to try to find a political exit for Bashar Assad rather than a U.S. led military exit. That is the approach.
Thank you.